Kind of welcome back to everybody. It's a new season. 2014 is here. We're really excited to get started with it all as we get into this season. With the announcement that Patrick just made, all 99 players that were anticipated to report today reported. That's always a good thing when you can start with 100% attendance. So it's nice that we're there. We don't have any surprises with that, with our upperclassmen or our signing class, with everything. A couple people I got to compliment. You know, what we have been doing since we last talked is this team has been working extremely hard. And I really need to thank the administration for allowing our players to be as involved as they were in summer school. I think it was a huge summer for us to get ahead academically, for a lot of players to really do some good things academically. But most importantly, it was really important that we got in the weight room and we were able to train, condition, and do those type of things all summer. But the thing that we really need to do is put this team together. And the team is really put together in the summer when those guys are all here and the bonding that goes on with everything. I need to thank the administration. I need to thank Kurt Hester for the incredible job that he did this summer with this team and the attitude and the morale of where they are right now and the excitement walking into the 2014 season. I also need to compliment these players for the commitment that they made. We talk all the time about the NCAA really regulates how many spring practices you can have in 15, how many fall practice opportunities, and 29 practice opportunities. You're very limited with what you can do. But in the summer, that's when we have a chance to make some strides. And I felt like we really did some good things this summer and made some big strides on the football field and off the field in trying to put this melting pot together. As I'll talk about in a minute, we still have a lot of new faces, a lot of guys that haven't played, and so bringing this football team together is going to be one of the bigger challenges that we have coming through camp. The schedule of the team, obviously we report today. We'll have our conditioning test tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. that everybody has to pass. That goes at 6 a.m. Then we'll have our first practice tomorrow afternoon. On Monday and Tuesday we'll be in shorts. On Wednesday and Thursday we'll be in shells, and Friday will be our first day in full pads. I talked a lot with Patrick in this offseason about opening practice, closing the practice. We want to do everything we can to give the media and our fan base exposure to this football team. But I also think there's a fine line between giving the media and the fan base what they need and also being able to protect the competitive advantage of this football team when you look at when we start getting into game planning and scheming and everything else. A lot of questions about the freshmen always come up early. How's he doing? How's he doing? So as I had talked to Patrick, I will open practice the first 5 days of practice, as a lot of people can come in and have an opportunity to get some film and some video with this being the beginning, and there's a lot of excitement and energy. But after that, we're going to kind of shut it down a little bit and try and make as many days as we can available to give you all what you need. So please communicate with Patrick with what you need in this. We want to work with you. We're a team. We really help each other as we go through this, and the media is an important part of the exposure with what we're trying to build and what we're trying to do. So please communicate with us. But this is what the best thing that I can find right now to kind of give the media stations what everybody needs, but also protect the interest of this program. And then Saturday, we will have our first two-a-days. After the first 5 1-a-days, Saturday will be our first two-a-day. We have scheduled, I think, 4 two-a-days on the books right now, possibly 5 with what we're doing. We are going to give our players off Sunday during camp from a physical standpoint. We will not practice. It doesn't mean that they're going to have it off mentally. It means we'll be in longer meetings during the course of the day to get done what we got to get done, but we will not be on the field on Sundays. We will have 2 scrimmages before our opening game. We will have a scrimmage 2 weeks in. We will have a scrimmage that will be we call it our freshman scrimmage, where after that scrimmage we're going to have to make some decisions on what freshmen we're going to play with, which freshmen we're going to redshirt, and so that's really an important scrimmage, and that gives everybody the first 2 weeks for us to get a really good evaluation of where the freshmen are. The second scrimmage will be 3 weeks into it, and that will be our pregame run that we will have. That will be our pre-Oklahoma scrimmage, and then we will be into game week after that. I think there's 4 main goals that we're trying to get done this camp. When I look at what we have to do with this football team, the one, and I think probably most important as I talk about, is establishing a team. Well, we have 20 seniors, and a lot of people look at that and say, wow, we have 20 seniors. You got a lot of 4th and 5th year guys that have been in the program, and you're well established as you're moving forward. But when you take a closer look at our senior class, we have 13 of those seniors have been recruited in the last year. So when you look at it, there's only 7 really upperclassmen that have been in this program, and the others were junior college additions last year, senior transfers, things along those lines, trying to complement and build a senior class because it really wasn't very big when we came in here. So I think first and foremost, we've got to put this team together. From a unity standpoint. Second, we've got to establish roles. I talked a lot about the freshmen and some of these senior transfers that are coming in here, and we've got to find out what their roles are going to be on this team. And so I think establishing the roles of every player and developing a depth chart is going to be important. Patrick said a depth chart's not going to come out until the week of the Oklahoma game because we really aren't going to have one until the week of the Oklahoma game. We're not trying to keep something from you there, but this is going to be, there's going to be a lot of great competition at a lot of positions that are still open as we've come out of spring, and there are going to be a lot of guys that are battling for a number 2 spot with so many of the new faces, which I'll cover in just a minute. The third thing we've got to do is execute what we're doing offensively and defensively. Defensively, we are in the first year again, and that with a new defensive coordinator, bringing in new terminology and a new scheme, we've got to get to the point where we can really get our offensive and defenses down, and we've got to lastly develop a special teams. What that dirty dozen is going to look like for us, that group of guys that are going to run down on kickoffs, kickoff return, punt return, who are going to be the guys that are going to play in our big 4. And that's where I think a lot of these freshmen that are coming in here really have a chance to play that role for us this year. If they're going to play, then we're going to make sure we get the most out of them, and we're going to put them on a lot of these special teams units. It has been a busy off season, since we last talked about kind of personnel when we talked after signing date in February, and we added the new freshmen and the signing class and a lot of the excitement and energy, but we knew when we walked out of there we weren't done. I think I even made the comment at that time, we still have a little bit to go. We still have some pieces that we have to fill with this team, and it was a very busy season from an off-season standpoint as we added 7 scholarship players since signing day in February. Some of the new additions that are here that I'm excited to get on the field with, one is going to be Houston Bates, defensive end who transferred in from Illinois, has been here this summer. I'm anxious to see him out on the field. Cody Sokol, a quarterback from Iowa who was transferred in. I'm excited to see him. And the third upperclassman coming in here is Taylor Birch, who used to play quarterback and then went on and has played baseball the last 2 years, and now he's coming back to the quarterback position. And you put those 2 guys, Cody and Taylor, along with Ryan Higgins and the 2 freshmen, we're going to have a completely different look at the quarterback position. There were 2 junior college players that have been late additions. Some of these have been public, but we haven't had an opportunity to be on the field with them yet, and that's what this camp is all about. One of them is Josh Gaston, who is going to be a tight end, and the other one is David Mahaffey, who is an offensive lineman, where we really feel like we need some help from a depth chart. And then there were 2 freshmen that we added late that have been late additions. One is Tywan Walters, who was a quarterback in high school in Mississippi, will play a receiver, running back, slot position for us. And the other one is Roland Dunn from Shreveport, a defensive back. So it was a very busy offseason since signing date, adding not only those 7 scholarship players, but we also added 6 walk-ons who have been put on scholarship. 6 guys that I think have earned it, that kind of show the value that we are really placing on the complete package, what they're doing academically, their attitude off the field, and really what they're doing in the way that they're contributing on the field. And those 6 are C.J. Cleveland on the defensive side of the ball, who has been a walk-on safety, who is going to be a linebacker, will go on scholarship. There's 3 on offense, and Marlon Seats, a running back who's from Houghton, right down the road, Connor Smith, and Ricky Jones. All 3 of those guys have gone on scholarship on offense. And then from a specialist standpoint, there were 2. And Darryl Travis, the deep snapper, who played about 4 games for us last year because of injury as a deep snapper, and also Kyle Fisher, who went in and did a great job for us last year and is now one of the Groza, I believe is on one of the preseason watch lists for the Groza Award. because of the percentages that he had last year. But there's been, when you start to look at those guys, there's 13 new scholarship additions on this football team. And I'm really excited that those guys are here and that they're going to be able to be part of it. From a deletion standpoint, there are some of this has been common knowledge, but Kevin Kisseberth will not return for his final year of eligibility. That was a decision that he and his family had to make because of an injury that he sustained in the spring and what he had to go through, and we wish him the best of luck, but he will not be with us this spring. And the other two that are the other two that are not reporting to camp, Kevin Gary, who had a knee injury during the spring and is in a rehab state with everything and will not be able to play this season because of his injury, and the other one is Thomas McDonald, is not on that reporting list as well. So he will not be in the reporting numbers, but we do anticipate him joining our program again when we come back to school the week before, the week of the Lafayette game. The schedule, when I look at the schedule, and that is the one thing everybody's wanted to talk about as I've gone around in the off season, is what about the schedule? I noticed the coaches poll came out this week. I saw where Oklahoma is 3 and Auburn is 5. Having to play 4 of our first 5 opponents against bowl teams on the road is not going to be easy, and having to play the first 3 games, all 3 on the road against 3 bowl teams in the first 13 days of the season, I don't think anybody in the country has as difficult of an opening to their year as we do and what we're walking into. And it's going to be, you look at it, it's going to be a phenomenal challenge for us with so many new faces we've talked about, and having to put this team together and having to be tested early on the road with Oklahoma, Lafayette, and North Texas. And so it's going to be a great challenge for us, but it's certainly not going to be easy. But with challenges also come phenomenal opportunities, and that's what we're going to have early in this season as we get into this. Practice, as I said, is going to be open for the first 5 days to come out and see kind of this football team and to create kind of that excitement as everybody is highly anticipated, many of these transfers and incoming freshmen, to be able to come out and have an opportunity to watch them. And I guess the last thing, a year ago, we were sitting here and we had 8 waivers that pretty much occupied most of this press conference to say, what's going to happen with Banks and Gilliard and Graffrey and all the guys that we were waiting on. As we sit here today, we only have 1 waiver that is in process right now, and that is Sterling Griffin, who is applying for his 6th year. Part of the difficulties in what we went through last year is now being in Conference USA and having to go through the WAC for all the waivers. With Sterling Griffin's injuries being when he was playing in the Big East, having to go back and take that waiver back through the Big East and then come through Conference USA. But when you look at it, it's what the rule was written for. A young man who has completely missed 2 seasons, one with a knee and one with a dislocated ankle. And so we're very optimistic about what's going to happen with Sterling and his eligibility as we go into the season. So those are kind of a couple of the hot points or topics to start with. And what questions could I answer for anybody?
Last year, it seemed like maybe the theme going into camp was kind of surviving. And obviously, I say that only because you guys lost double the Lettermans that you returned coming into this year.
Yes.
Talk about maybe what the theme is this year. Maybe kind of getting back to Bulldog football maybe, or what?
Together, I think, is the biggest thing. As I said that, the biggest challenge we're going to have, we have to play early in the season. I wish we had some warm-up games to get into the conference, but we don't have that luxury right now. And all of a sudden, you've got transfer quarterbacks, possibly a starting defensive end, a lot of new faces that are going to be playing, and we got to get to the point where we can gel and get everybody on the same page. It's not just a matter of learning your assignment and I do this, but it's the camaraderie and the trust factor that goes with playing offense and defense and everybody clicking. And that's why you hear of really good offensive lines or really good football teams. Well, these guys have all been together for 4 years or been together for 5 years. And that team and that chemistry is built over a long period of time. We got a month, and we've got a clock on the other end. There's a deadline on the other end, and we've got a month that we've got to get this team together. But there's no doubt we have got to make some huge strides offensively from where we were a year ago. And we we are going to have some different looks than we did a year ago. We started getting into some of it in the spring, and we're even going to broaden that even a little bit more as we get into this camp. I don't think we can be as stagnant as 4 wides and 2x2 and 3x1 and throwing the ball all over the yard every play. I just don't think we're there yet. I'd like to get to the point where we can, as we watch some of these young players. When you start to look at the speed of a guy like Marcus Gaines and Tywone Walters, and when I look at Marlon Watts and Cameron McKnight and a lot of those guys that I think have a chance to bring some explosiveness to our offense, when those guys come along and we have a little bit more explosiveness and depth, I'll feel better about that. But right now we got to find a way to stop turning the ball over and move it forward as an offense. And then defensively, we've just really got to polish up where we are right now. I think we have a chance to be pretty strong on defense. We have a chance. I mean, we still have a long way to go and how we're going to come together, and if we can play unselfish and as a team and not let the I syndrome get through our football team with everything, with some guys that are getting some accolades and some awards right now, and if we can kind of keep those on the back shelf and put the priority being this football team first, then I think we have a chance to be pretty good defensively, especially early.
Coach, you've talked about Walters twice already, and he's a guy that you did add late.
Right.
And had really nothing going until you guys came around. How fortunate do you feel to find a guy of his caliber so late?
Well, I mean, he's going to be a work in progress from a standpoint of he was a quarterback and he's going to have to go play another position. So there's going to be a learning curve that goes with that. But, you know, when you look at his film with his speed and athleticism and the things he can do and his raw talent, I think he has a chance to really be a special player, and to know that he was available and we had an opportunity to still bring in a guy like that into our program. We feel really fortunate. I think he's very talented, but we're going to have to see how quick he can learn it as we go through this. But he does possess some of those big play capabilities we talked about.
We haven't had a chance to see Sokol, and I'm sure yours has been very limited.
I haven't either.
What did you see on film or on tape or in the history of him that makes him so attractive?
Well, there was a couple things. One, you had, even though that he was a senior at Iowa and was not playing, he did have 2 years of junior college film in Arizona where he broke most of Tim Rattay's passing records. I know Tim flinches every time we bring that up, but he did break most of those records, and I think you have 2 years of junior college film where you can really get a great evaluation of him. And then the coaches at Iowa were incredibly complimentary, and the things that I constantly heard from Coach Frentz and the other coaches there was team player, unbelievable guy, very disappointed he didn't get the role once he transferred in there. They competed right up till the end. They went with a younger player. He said, great attitude, team player, never a distraction. Players love him, respect him, just so many positive things about him. And when you see what you can see physically, but then you hear what type of young man he is and what type of leadership skills he brings to the offense, it's what we need. I mean, we went out and said that quarterback is a concern. When Scotty Young decided not to come back for his senior year and the only quarterback you had coming back, last year we had 2 and that had never taken a snap. Now you have 1 who's going to be a sophomore, and I just felt like Cody gave us the ability as a guy that can come in here if he can win it and compete for it. He gave you a 5th-year senior who brought a lot of those leadership and talent to the offense, where Ryan and some of these younger quarterbacks and Alex and Price have an opportunity to develop, watch, hopefully learn from a guy that really is doing it the right way and grow and build. And I think it helps answer the short-term problems we have at quarterback, but I also think it really helps us from a long-term standpoint to bring the young quarterbacks along slowly rather than just having to throw them into the fire.
In terms of the learning curve, I mean, it's got to be a challenge for him to come in right away and get thrown right into the fire.
Very. He's going to have to learn to speak a new language in about a month. And as I said, he's going to have to be pretty fluent at it, playing the opening schedule that we have to play with 3 bowl teams on the road in the first 3 days. So he's going to have to get it in a hurry. And we've got to, if we go out there, I mean, he's still got to win the position, but if we go out there and he takes it early, then we're going to have to look at what we're going to have to do with how much we put in, how much we really give him. Because I think going into the first couple games of the year, what you need to make sure you do is don't make a lot of mistakes.
Coach, you mentioned Ricky Jones and Josh Gaston. What did you miss from last year not having those 260-pound tight ends?
We don't have any mids. I mean, that was one of the biggest problems I felt when we came in here. There was only three linebackers on scholarship, so it wasn't, and there was none on offense. There were no tight ends, there were no fullbacks, there were none of those bigger running backs where you had an opportunity to be able to kind of secure an edge and protect a young quarterback as Ryan was, and that was one of the things that really made it hard. I think the spread offense is great, and I love it, as long as you have a quarterback that can stand back there and do the things that you need him to do. But when you don't have a guy that you feel really good about standing back there and throwing it every down, you got to be able to secure your edges, and that's what a guy like Ricky Jones and a guy like Josh Gaston, what they bring to the table right away, that we're going to have some immediate ability to be able to do some different things formationally that we haven't been able to do in the past. The other thing that really hurts you when you don't have mids, that's why we signed 4 junior college linebackers a year ago, because when you don't have mids, boy, it really hurts your special teams. Who's playing those inside wedge breakers, at the 5 and 4 positions on your kickoff? Who's playing your guards on your punt team? Who's playing your front wall on your kickoff return team? I mean, it just makes it very, very difficult because you don't have a lot of those mid bodies to play with. And the guys that we had were smaller. And so what happens is a lot of guys had to play. They had to start on defense and had to play on a number of special teams. And I hope this can help us a little bit more. But definitely going to give us a different look than we've had in the past year.
Coach, you talk about the offense and how you must improve on offense. You look here at the roster, Darryl Brown at the 302.
Yeah.
He would never have dreamed of being 302 last season. Left side of the offensive line really was your Achilles heel last year, as well up the middle.
Yep.
How important is it that your left tackle is now at the 302?
Well, and I think he may be 308 right now. I mean, I think he reported today at 308. And then you look at a guy like Jens Danielson, who played for us last year. I think was at about 273 pounds a year ago, and he's up over 290 something right now. And that's why I think, these guys, what they did, and that's why I compliment Coach Hester so much and these players, because it takes a commitment. It's not just I'm going to contribute, but it takes a commitment from these guys, because it's not just that I went to the weight room and lifted, but I'm eating right. Because we ran them, we lifted them. They've got to eat. They've got to put those calories into their body. I think it was a huge thing having the ability to send them to Summer Session 2, which we haven't been able to do in the past, and that's why I'm very appreciative to the administration, because it gave those guys an opportunity to be around here for the second half and be on scholarship and be able to eat and do the things that we needed to do to get there. So I think there's some guys that have really changed their bodies. I look at Brunson and the way he looks right now, the progress that he's made. I just think there's a lot of guys that have really changed their bodies, and they're doing some great things right now.
What are your feelings heading into camp as opposed to last year? Are you more at ease? Is there more of an urgency?
More at ease as far as being around the players and understanding a little bit more, having been around them for a year and a half rather than 6 months at this point, but probably a bigger sense of urgency, because I do think we have more talent than we had a year ago going into the season, but I think a lot of them just got here. Like Tony Johnson last year got here at this time when Cody and when Houston Bates and we redshirted them, because it's so difficult to come in, just go to camp and be ready to go. And so that's why, that's probably my biggest sense of urgency right now, is what we have to do to kind of bring it all together and make sure that we can give our most talented players an opportunity to get on the field.
Talked about the look of the offense. What is the identity? Go.
I don't, until I find out what some of these freshmen can do. Some of the speed guys or big play players I talked about on the perimeter, till I find out where we are at quarterback and how some of these offensive linemen are going to mesh coming in. I've always said that what you want to try and do as an offensive coach is highlight your strengths and hide your weaknesses. Right now, as we talked about, I haven't even seen Cody Sokol throw a pass. So I have no idea. I've heard a lot about him. I've seen him on film, but I haven't seen him in person or how he processes everything and what we're going to be able to do. So at this point, I really don't know what that's going to be.
You mentioned some of the older guys that you're looking forward to, like Houston, Cody, Birch coming in.
Yep.
What about some of the younger guys that you're looking forward to seeing out on the field?
Well, and again, until we can get out on the field and find out what they can do, and I think there's some very talented freshmen in this class. I think before a freshman can play, there has to be a hole for him to step into. And right now, I think, when I look at Cameron Knight as one of those bigger mids who's coming in here as a guy that could hopefully make an immediate impact. When I look at the speed and athleticism of Gaines, Watts, and Walters at wide receiver, receiver. When I look at our depth right now and some of the things that we're doing, I look at a Jared Kraft, who I think is very talented. I've really been impressed with Ferris and Moore, the two linebackers that are coming in here, and what they have done and the reports that I'm getting on them from the weight room. I think Cedric Cooper has a chance. I think Deldrick Canty and Ferguson at the defensive end position have a chance. I know I'm not saying anything really concrete because I just don't know, but those are the guys that I'm really excited about getting here to get on the field to see how they're going to be able to pick it up, how they're going to handle themselves on the field, and what they can do on the field. But they're going to have to earn their rite of passage on the field.
Other than quarterback, what are the most interesting, intriguing position battles you're looking forward to?
Receivers, the depth at the running back position, when you start to look at Seats and Ricky Jones and obviously Kenneth, but with Blake Martin, with Tevin King, with Jared Kraft, I mean, all of a sudden there's a pretty good sized line there, and I think there's going to be a lot of jockeying. There are going to be a lot of guys trying to fight to get into that too deep. I think that's going to be an interesting battle. The offensive line right now, I think we have the 10 or 11 players we know who we're going to work with, but I could not tell you right now who are going to be the 5 starters and where. We've got some flexibility. A guy like Mahaffey coming in, Wixon coming in, Brunson, all 3 have the ability to play center and guard. All 3 have snapped the ball, so it's going to give us a little bit of flexibility to do what we have to do to get our best 5 on the field. Probably a little bit more consistency on the defensive side because you've got guys coming out of spring. We feel like we have the 3 starting linebackers going into it right now, and Tony Johnson, Pinson, and Villamez. Feel like we have those 3 right now being the starters coming into camp. Same thing in the secondary with 3 safeties and the 3 corners that have played a lot. The Vernon Butler and the McKinneys and the D'Angelo Brookses. I feel like we have a lot more proven talent on the defensive side of the ball right now, and those positions are much more secure. But offensively, I don't know that there's too many positions that have that luxury on the offensive side of the ball.
You talk defensively on the defensive line. At tackle, you've got some proven guys coming back. At end is where you probably have some anxiety.
Agreed.
Especially with the news of Kissenberg at the end. What do you have at a 2 deep at the end? Are you going to have to play some odd man fronts?
Well, we have that. I mean, I think everybody right now is playing an even and an odd. They're both playing a 4 down or a 3 down. You know, people are doing a little bit of both of it. We did both of it in the spring, and we'll have the ability to do both of it. But what we highlight right now is going to be predicated upon how the depth behind those guys comes along. When you talk about a guy like having Dora back, he missed spring, but having him back, I thought Taylor had a fantastic spring and really had a great summer. And then bringing in a guy like Houston Bates, who has played as much as he has at Illinois. Michael Schrang was a move that we made from linebacker down to the defensive end, and he has just really embraced it and done a great job with it. And then I talked about those 2 young guys in Canty and Ferguson and how they're going to come along and what they're going to be able to do. So I think there's some bodies there. We just got to have to find out how that's going to play out at the defensive end position.
Last year at this time, you're hoping to get Paul Turner eligible, and now, of course, he is.
Yes.
What do we expect from him this year?
I expect him to be one of the leaders of our offense. I expect him to do all the things that he's been doing in practice for a year. He's been a leader. He's positive. He's a hard worker. He's learned the offense. He knows what to do. He's had a great summer. He looks good. He's gained some weight. We just got to make sure that we can keep him healthy. But I look at him being, right now I use that term, I look at him as being one of the bell cows of the wide receiver. He's going to be one of the guys that everybody's going to follow, and he's going to be one of the real leaders out there. And when you look at the spring game and see some of the big play capabilities that we were missing a year ago and what he brought to the table in the first play of the spring game, we look for some of that big play potential out of a guy like Paul.
With McDonald not reporting, does that kind of shore up the question mark? There's a lot of competition in the spring in the back 4. Does that kind of solidify things a little bit more with him not here?
Well, I think it still gives us 3. We feel like we have 3 starters right now at safety when you start talking about Bryce, Grogan, and Woods. 3 guys that have played a lot and done a lot. And then there's going to be a number of guys compete for that. We could always move a Pruitt back over from the corner position to the safety position, who's played quite a bit for us on special teams. We talked about Cedric Cooper. You know, there's a great window for him to step into if he can come in and handle it all. And so those are some of the, the depth battles that are going to be going on right now.
Last year, y'all had some battles on the recruiting trail at corner. You picked up a guy out of Shreveport, Kirkland McCullough, who on tape, honestly, is a scholarship quality athlete. I talked about Tyler Walters and how good you feel about finding him.
Right,
You even found
right.
a guy without spending a scholarship like McCullough. How good does that feel?
Well, I mean, there's 4 new walk-ons that are coming in here that reported today, 4 new walk-ons, and Kirtland is a very, very talented player, and it's the same thing. I mean, there was a lot of conversation. I mean, when we got into this, it's like we really want to find a way to make this happen. If we can have a scholarship available, and it's, do you take care of a Marlin Seats and a Cleveland and some of those guys, or do you use it to go out and get another one? And I just felt like we had the obligation to some of these guys that were here, but also talk to him about there's a lot of ways to get there. I mean, you can come in and earn it the same way that those guys have, those 6. And so I think he's a guy that's coming in here that I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see him on film. I'm excited to see Will Parker as a punter coming in here, what he can do, and Spears and Sparrow, who are the 4 new walk-ons that have just reported in. But I think Kirtland McCullough is a very talented player, and I'm anxious to see what he can do.
Coach, you inherited a team that was really low on scholarship numbers a year ago, and you mentioned adding all the players this summer. Can you comment on how close you are to that 85 limit?
Right now we're at 83. Right now we're at 83, which is a huge jump. Last year we played at 79. One of the things that really limits you is you only have 25 initials. And we talked about when 32 players walk out the door, you can only replace 25 of them with incoming players. And so that's where what we've tried to do is trying to use some of the scholarships without using an initial with some of the guys that we've talked about, like the Connor Smiths and the Kyle Fishers and those guys that have been here to help us get back to 85, where we can get healthy enough where you can go sign 25 a year and not feel like you're under the limit.
Anything else?
One more thing on Connor Smith. Did you ever expect the quarterback that was 6'3", 180 as a freshman to be one of those mids you were talking about before? He's not quite there, but he's almost a mid.
But he's moving. He's moving in that direction. He's another guy that had a phenomenal summer. And I remember Connor is just so committed. He would do whatever we asked him to do. He just wants to help this team and play and get on the field in any way that he can. And I remember a year ago when we were going through spring and we moved him out to wide receiver, I told him then, I said, you keep working and doing what you're doing. I said, you're going to get bigger, you're going to put on weight, and you're going to play here. I said, you will earn a scholarship here if you just stay with it. And he has worked incredibly hard, got an unbelievable attitude. I mean, he's not one of those guys that walked around with a chip on his shoulder saying, well, I don't have a scholarship. I mean, and sulked and pouted. He's a guy that said, you know what, I'm going to make him give me one. I'm going to work so hard. I'm going to outwork everybody else. I'm going to put on weight. I'm going to do the things I need to do to get there. And I think he had a phenomenal summer, and he's up over 210 pounds right now for a guy, like you said, that was 180 a year ago. And that's where a lot of the praise really needs to go to the individuals, the young men, for the commitment that they made off the field and the way they ate and the way they rested and took care of their bodies this summer. But a lot of it goes into a guy like Kurt Hester, too, and the incredible job that he's done with this team this summer.